Well, my buddy Fred has decided to join us. He likes to climb up on his chair and just watch the proceedings. Now, he'll sit there all night if I let him and just watch what's going on. He won't bother anybody. Occasionally he'll get excited and he'll start chasing his tail or attacking a towel or maybe attacking me. But most of the time he just kind of sits there serenely. Like I said, he is the most sleepy cat I've ever met. But he's a real sweetie. Right, Fred? You tired, Fred? You wish I'd just leave you alone? Okay, buddy. We'll get back to work then. Okay, boys and girls. I think the most logical thing to do now is just to dive in. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with this big thing that's in my way. That's this capacitor. I'm going to print the schematic. Again, I forgot to print it, and I have my computer transcoding some video, so that takes a long time. So my computer is busy for a while. So I'm just going to replace something that should be obvious what it is, and that's going to be this guy. I really dig this kind right here that are in these little clamps, but here's the thing, man. You can't take this out of here without banging into this band switch. So all I can really do to get this, that's kind of interesting, and you can't slide it that way. There's not enough room here either. I wonder what the heck they had in mind. Maybe it'll rotate. Not easily. It's attached with this ground wire right here. So really what I'm going to have to do is mark them and then cut it and get this thing, take this thing out of there. I'll have to cut it anyway. Actually, what I'll do is I'll just remove this rivet. I'm not going to use this capacitor. There's no way that I would use that. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab my Dremel and cut that off. Now I have a real Dremel, but I don't like it very much. I like this one better. The real Dremel I have was made in China, and this thing was made in the United States, but that's not why I like it. It's just a better machine. I've got glasses on, guys. Don't ever do this without safety glasses, please. All right, I'm going to sit down. If I can get Buster off my chair. Come on, go on. And where I can get a good steady hand on this. And here we go. Well, yeah, it's kind of hard to show you this one right now with the. Really, let me just give you a peek at it. So, all I'm doing, folks, is just removing this rivet right here. I'm going to grind that off of there, and that thing will pop out. That capacitor will lift right off. All right, let's grind this puppy off of here, eh? Boy, that rivet is a stubborn little guy. It's coming out. There's no reason that this shouldn't come out now. I want to be careful. I don't want to put too much force on it. I'll hit that band switch. Let me get a punch. I don't know where they go, but my drifts all go somewhere. My punches, my drifts, whatever you want to call them, they all go somewhere. And they aren't in the place where they're supposed to be. There we go. Perfect. Now this thing is loose. I got a ground wire here. I want to make sure I can preserve that if possible. Let me just go ahead and clip it there. Then I don't have to resolder to the chassis. I'll just solder to it. Alright. I know that's a ground. It's pretty obvious. Now we got some wires clipped on here. So if I unclip them, I should be able to lift this sucker out of here. This is a really neat chassis. It's really well made. I'm real impressed. I've worked in other Westinghouses, but I don't remember them being quite so technician friendly as this one is. And the clip's a little bit wonky, but that's okay. I'll use a cable tie to clip that back in, because this clip just, it's like paper thin. It just tore. All right, so now I can see what these are. Get this guy off of here. This kind of clamp You can slide them off easily by just grabbing these prongs that are sticking up and squeezing it. It opens them up, opens the clamp up just a hair. See? I told you this little guy was the sleepiest cat I ever saw. He could sleep through a bomb going off too. But you know, he works so hard. I need to cut him some slack, don't you think? Okay, Fred. Maybe we'll let you rest now. If you haven't seen this kind of electrolytic before, take a look at it. Looking at the can itself, you can see there are two microfarad values stamped into it. They're both 30 microfarad. On a lot of cans, they're different, okay? And they may even have different voltages, but both of these are, they say, 450 working volts. That's what the WV stands for, working volts. So each one of these is a 30 microfarad at 450 volts. Now you see these goofy symbols right here? The little triangle and the half moon? Those symbols correspond to symbols that are sitting right next to the terminals on the can. You know, where the terminals come out to hook up electrically. So there's the half moon right there. It may not look much like a half moon, but it doesn't look like a triangle. And let's see if the other one's a triangle, okay? And sure enough, the other one is a triangle. Can you see that? Let me see if I can point that out to you. There we go, that's a triangle. So now I know which capacitor is which, and when I print the schematic, I'll mark them with triangle and half moon. For right now, I'm just going to mark the wires that way. All right, since they're both 30 microfarad, it's really not going to matter. As long as the wires are grouped, it's okay, because both of them are grounded through the can. Now usually it'll say that on the can itself. Well, not on this one. That's okay. There's a reason that this can terminal here was connected to ground right here, because the capacitors inside are grounded to the can. All right, when we look at the schema, we're going to see that both of the filter capacitors are grounded to chassis. And that's exactly how this is set up. Since they're both 30 microfarad, it really doesn't matter. I'll put two of them in here side by side and I'll set them all up. So let me get going on that. See? I told you this little guy was the sleepiest cat I ever saw. He could sleep through a bomb going off too. But you know, he works so hard. I need to cut him some slack, don't you think? Okay, Fred. Maybe we'll let you rest now. As long as I don't mix these wires up, I should be good. So I've gone ahead and put on a terminal strip, and I'll have my ground right here. So it's a simple matter of connecting the electrolytics between here and here, here and here. Nothing to it. And then I connect these wires up, one set of wires, like this one's individual, to this one, and these three wires to this guy right here, and we're done. So that part's easy, and I'll clean up some real estate. So what I want to do is get these wires there first so I can chuck this thing. This thing's getting on my nerves. As you know, if things are dangling, they got to go. They get on my nerves. And I can get grumpy when things get on my nerves. So let me go ahead and put this thing finally to a nice peaceful death. Now this radio was not really humming all that much, but I think this is the original electrolytic can, and I don't like leaving old electrolytic cans in radios because they will come out to bite you even if they sound fine now. I like this particular kind of terminal strip because I have plenty of room to work. I have big hands, and my hands are always in the way. These kind, you just get on there and you wrap around. There's no little holes to peek through or anything like that. You see this kind a lot in televisions and other pieces of gear that used wire wrapping as their attachment method instead of soldering. But these wire wrap terminal strips were great to solder to too. And I have seen things from the factory that were wire wrapped and then soldered. I'm not sure why, but I have seen it. So I don't want to get too fancy here. Just go around the thing 1, maybe 2 times. All right. Squeeze it down if you can. There you go. And you just leave that wire. I like to leave the length there unless it's really excessive, because you never know. The next guy who replaces an electrolytic might need that length. All right. So, and tuck it back against the wall like it's supposed to be. And I think we'll be golden. All right. So that's one. That's one of the electrolytics. Now these 3 all are going to go to this terminal right here. Let's see if I have the length. I sure hope so. I just wasn't thinking about that. You know, I have more length to go that route. And this one is a long wire. So we just bring this puppy over here. Remember, it doesn't matter, right? They're both 30s. So I just park that guy right over here. Plenty of wire to do that. It doesn't care which terminal it's on, as long as it's connected up to a 30 microfarad electrolytic capacitor. The positive side of a 30 microfarad, all right? And it looks like Westinghouse uses red wire for B+, so I'll verify that, but that's always nice when radio manufacturers do that, because then it's easy to chase down things like B+. Not so with some of the old Zeniths, the black dial Zeniths and stuff, you know. All right, see, now I can huck this thing out. It's no good to me. Then I'll take each of these 3 wires. These 3 are grouped together. So that's what I shall do. Let's trim off some insulation. I like that these are solid wire, because that makes them easy to work with. I don't get what these... Somebody's got to answer my question about what the heck are these little cords in here for. I'm kind of anal, and I clip them off. Now, I don't know that I need to do that, but I do it anyhow. I'll pull this out here to strip it. That way I'm not tugging on it too hard. Get that guy stripped. See, there's another one of those stupid cords. They bug me because they never come off with the insulation. And they have no business being in there. Alright, we'll wrap those around in a second. One thing at a time, guys. One thing at a time. Let's trim this guy off of here. Now that's a stranded wire. Isn't that interesting? Okay. So let me go ahead and put this one on here since I got my fingers on it now. I like to use my Edward scissor hands, plus it makes it easier for you to see what the heck it is I'm doing. So just come around 1.5 times, you know, maybe 2. Don't strip half a mile of wire, half a mile of insulation off of there, and then think you got to run it around 20 times. And sometimes with these, and this is another thing I like, if you're real gentle about it, you can bend one of these up and then they're easier to work with, and you can either leave it up or bend it back. I like to do that because then I can get it at the angle that is easy for my pliers to get hold of. So if you ever stumble on these, because I've gotten them in like 2, 3, 4, and 5 terminal strips, and I like them best of all. As long as there's room for those long terminals, and I sometimes will roll them over, you know, make a little O out of them, so if there's not room especially, because I still like working with them. They're just easier. Alright, you got to get some of these Xuron pliers. If you don't have these, man, you are missing out. These are wonderful, and they're not expensive. And on top of all of that, for those of us that are living stateside, these things are made in the United States. So that's an even bigger bonus. And you'll love them. These are great tools. I've gotten to where I work better with one of these in each hand than I do with my fingers. By the way, my little clipper is also a Xuron. Xuron, that's X-U-R-O-N. They make some awesome stuff. And I bought a whole set of all different kinds of pliers for my wife and her jewelry stuff she does. And she really digs them too. So these were made at different times, so the springs are different. But other than that, they're identical. And both springs work great. These are really nice tools. This material is really grippy. You know, you have to be trying to drop one of these, and they're light and they're well balanced. It's just a good tool. All right, so they're supposed to be 30s, but I don't have any 30s, and I doubt if you have any 30s also, especially in good electrolytics. They just don't make them anymore, or they might make some, but they're expensive. And 3 microfarads above the 30 isn't going to hurt it a bit. So I'm going to put 2 33 microfarads in there, but you know me, I'm not going to put it in there without putting some shrink tubing on there. Guys, when I do my electrolytics, I like to be reminded just by glancing at it which end is positive and which end is negative. So this is one of the few things I do to color code these things. Okay, I'll use a black on the negative side, and you can see it's negative because these things have this sort of arrow pointing with the negative symbol to the end that's negative. But electrolytics also have this little ridge on the positive end. Okay, so if you just remember those two things, it's pretty hard to go wrong. And like I said, I like red on the positive end and black on the negative. So let me go ahead and shrink this puppy down. I like to shrink them down. You don't have to, but they'll fall off on you. And they'll fall off and land like in an IF can or something, and then you got to fish it out of there. See what I mean? See what I mean? They'll fall right off. And they'll make you mad because they'll fall into a spot where you don't want it, but you can't leave it there because it'll be a bad spot. I got to show you something funny about my heat gun. This is the best heat gun I've ever owned. Okay, it is a good tool. Sadly, it was made in China. It's Milwaukee, of course, but it has nothing to do with Milwaukee. Made in China. Oh, I didn't see that. Look at this, guys. I just noticed that. Wasn't that great? So I have to fix my heat gun. I just saw that. Well, that sucks. Well, okay, I'll be taking this great heat gun apart. That's not what I was going to show you. What I was going to show you is the silliness of the vent design. Let me unplug it so I don't zap myself. All right, let's test it. Okay. This vent design, you hold your hand like this to operate it, right? What are you covering up? Covering up the vents. So you're restricting the airflow. If they had been smart, they'd have put the vents up here somewhere or up here somewhere, and just made a passage to get through and then out through the heater. But I don't know. That'd be too hard to do. That would take some thought. But if I have learned to hold it like this, if I want good airflow, it's not as comfortable as I would like, but it works. Check that out. I had no idea. I just discovered that just now. Let me see how this comes apart. All right, those are Phillips screws, so I have to be able to replace this. I'll have to get myself a strain relief for it. This plastic that the strain relief is made of is real hard at this end. That's kind of dumb. It's not that flexible, but you need to be kind of flexible. Anyway, I'll come up with something. I'll probably clean it while I'm in there. But I'm sort of screwed for heating up the other one. My other heat gun's outside, and I'm running out of time tonight, so I'm gonna do this other electrolytic without shrinking the tubing. Okay, so I just contradicted myself. But I'm gonna go ahead and mount this guy. All right, so how do I want to do that? I want to lay it down close to the floor if I can, and I want that to come up like that, and I want this guy to do the same thing. All right, now remember, I'm going to bend this terminal back down. So what I want to do, let me put a little more shrink tube on this thing, make it a little longer. Remember, there's going to be B+ on there, and you don't want that just unprotected, mostly from your big fingers as you're sticking them down in the radio. Another way you can, if you're really hurting for heat, to shrink down shrink tubing, just put your soldering iron on a low temperature, and just don't use the solder end, the end that you've tinned. Okay, it may not be as clean, but this works. Just do this. Okay, just do that. When that gets warm, it will shrink that shrink tubing. It isn't as clean, but it does the job. And it's not as convenient. I like the heat gun better. But I have to get the job done. Okay, let me do this one. Oh, see, you lose these things. They fall off. And then you have to search for them, or you waste them. And this stuff, I don't know if you know, this shrink tubing is expensive, man. That's the one complaint about it I have. It works great, but it ain't cheap. At least where I get it, it's not cheap because they buy real good stuff. You can get the junk at Harbor Freight, but it doesn't shrink properly. It tears easily, and the sizes are kind of funky. I like using this stuff. And the colors are better on this stuff too. Okay, there. So I got that shrunk down. You know, a little bit of cleaning to do. I don't want to do it over the chassis. Just use, you know, nature's scraper. The best scraper you got that you have access to, or one of the best, is your fingernail. So it doesn't hurt to use them. I have a friend who plays guitar, and his fingernails are always long because, you know, he's always plucking at that guitar with those fingers. And so I think my fingernails get long sometimes. His, man, are like you know, something you'd see on Elvira. Those of you that are young, you'll have to go Google who Elvira is. You'll know when you see her. I have to go to the dentist on Thursday, and I got a feeling he's going to want to do a root canal on one of my choppers. And I'm not too excited about that, guys. I like dentists only marginally more than I would like being put on a chair in front of a firing squad. And I said only marginally. I mean, I don't much care for dentists. I would rather eat a whole bowl full of night crawlers than spend an hour in a dentist chair. And if you think I'm kidding, you're wrong. Well, this is a struggle. I'm trying to keep it so you can see it, and it's hampering my ability to get it done. I mean, this should be simple, right? Some things that look simple aren't. If I seem chatty today, it's because I haven't made a video in probably a week or so, and I got a lot to say. So just deal with it. Now, I don't want to go to that skinny wire after all. I want it to be attached to this guy right here. Alright, yeah, that's what I want, right like that. I'll leave that skinny guy on there in case something else comes along that I need a ground for, but for right now, that's where I'm going to go with that guy. Once that's soldered, that'll be nice and rigid. You don't want them flopping too much, okay? That'll break the wires. Alright, so I'm going to bend this guy up too so I can do the same thing, and I may just leave him up. There's plenty of room in this chassis for that, and that gives me access straight down. Now, I just realized, oh, okay, I can see the value. Sometimes I forget and I put these things in where you can't, upside down, you can't see the value. And you want to see, I was ready to put this in like this. You really want it like that. Okay, so you can see what it is, 33 microfarad. If you're going to twist this, grab a hold right here and make sure the twist happens in the wire and not at the joint where it goes into the capacitor, okay? There we go. Try not to twist that. And this one here, because these are fragile, all right, you want to bend it straight again and then bend it back the way you want it to go, because you'll twist one of those right off. And, you know, electrolytics aren't cheap. You don't want to bend them too many times, by the way. 2 or 3 is about all you're going to get before you start having trouble. Okay, so now that will help support, they'll help support each other, and they're out of the way still. So I'll bring this around here. No sweat. Loop that around. And squeeze it home if I can. You don't want to count on the solder as your firm mechanical connection. It's just an electrical connection. So I try to crimp these down. It's not always easy to do that, so you don't want to damage it trying to do it. You do the best you can. Well, this plier is getting worn. I've had this for about 3 years. When the serrations on the nose start to get kind of rounded and worn, it'll start, you can't grip a wire as well. And that's when it's time to replace. You know, you got to expect tools that you use a lot to need to be replaced. It's like anything else mechanical, man. It's going to wear out. All right, let's warm up the metal heater. Boy, that bums me out about my heat gun. That really ticks me off. Makes me so mad I need a little bit of liquid strength. Better not open that over the chassis. I once spilled a can of Coke inside of a Zenith chassis, Diet Coke, and thank goodness it was my chassis. But I then took it upstairs and washed it in the sink under water, and it took care of it. Those of you that have soldering stations that have a temperature indication, what temperature you usually solder at? I'm curious. I'm not going to tell you what I solder at because I want to see what you do first. Maybe because I don't want to tell you what I'm doing because it's wrong. Alright, so go ahead and heat that baby up. You want to heat the post as well as the wires. Alright, now. Yikes, why is it the smoke always goes right in your face? Sometimes these that are big lugs coming off the chassis are a little hard to get hot enough because the chassis is a big fat heat sink. Alright, let me move that one capacitor over now that it's fairly secure, just so I can solder. Ow! Yikes, guys, those are hot. I can hear you laughing out there. Larry, you better not be laughing. Alright, I'm off the capacitor now. I can go ahead and do this. Just be careful. I can't tell you how many radios I've touched the soldering iron to the case of the electrolytic and it melts a little plastic. I hate it. When I'm doing someone else's radio, I replace it. When I'm doing mine, I don't worry about it. There we go. Okay. Maybe I should touch that one too. What do you think? Alright, where's my tinning paste? You guys hide my tinning paste? Come on, man. Where the heck is it? Well, I don't have patience for that. I'll just open another one. I'll find it. I won't go to waste. But for now, I don't have time to fiddle around with it. Let's do some cleaning duty. Don't leave that flux on there. If you do decide to use it, don't leave it on there. Don't be a slob. It's like when you get done eating, help your wife out and pick your dishes up and take them over to the sink. Good Lord, were you raised in a barn? Clean it up. It wouldn't even hurt you, by the way, to go ahead and rinse those dishes and stick them in the dishwasher. What do you think? I think wifey'd be a lot more friendly if you did that kind of stuff for her. Those of you that do it know exactly what I'm talking about. Alright, so I got that done. So we're underway. I've got lots of other electrolytics to cope with, and I'm going to go ahead and cope with them now so I can get them done.
The right decision.
I'm listening to every word. But see, we have some demons in the night here. You see the glowing eyes? Buster, look at that, demon eyes. Now, that just came. We just gift wrapped that, and now he has to know what's in there, and he's not going to rest until he does.
Until he chokes on the ribbon and barfs it up.
Oh, nice. I'll have to edit that out.
It's true. What are you
Fred,
doing, Piggy?
Fred, come on down. Come on, buddy. What are you doing on my radio, you little beast? Well, okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and finish up the rest of all these electrolytics and get working on the ordinary film caps. and get that work underway. It's really kind of boring to watch me do one cap after another, so I'll do as I usually do. I'll get a bunch done and I'll show you how I'm doing. You'll see an update here shortly. I'm going to go ahead and close the shop for now. So from your Western Outpost in Salt Lake City, this is Michael. That's all for now.